Hello and welcome to the show. Remember to subscribe once you're done listening to this episode. It's available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast player of your choice. And remember to give me a 5-star review because I'm giving you more value than what you paid for, which is nothing because the show is absolutely free. Now, today on the show, we're going to go back to audience questions. And the last question before we took our detour was from Bernadette Mutsambiwa. And her previous question was on starting a medical diagnostics laboratory. She wants to know if it's a good idea to make all your capital expenditure first and then advertise for clients, or to try to validate the business idea first before you start investing money in rent, in machines, in chemicals, in reagents, in staff, and all the other things that you have to cough up huge money from before you start this business. So, this was the on the previous episode. Okay, on this topic, if you check the previous topic that we did on it before we made the detour, I've already run through the advantages and disadvantages of either approach. That is trying to validate the idea first. And remember, validation is about making sure that this is a good business opportunity and that there is indeed market supply for the service before you begin. And then the other end, which is to buy the building or rent the building, get all the equipment, get all the staff, get all the furniture, do all that, and then later on advertising for clients. So I have already, if you scroll back 2 episodes, you see the podcast episode where I handled the advantages and disadvantages of either approach. Now, what we're going to do today is to start the practical issues of how to go about validating the business idea, trying to make sure that this is a good idea to invest time and money into before you start sinking time and money into it. Now, the reason why I'm taking this approach is this: since both ideas can work, that is, set up the business first, then look for customers, or try to see if the business is worth it and then set up the business. Since both ideas can work, but since I prefer validating the business first before we throw money into the enterprise, then I figured let's just explore both options over here on the podcast. So, the first step that we're going to be looking at is how to validate your business idea, or rather, how to validate Bernadette's business idea of opening up a medical diagnostics lab in her city. Now, the first step is to define the target market, and the reason for this is simple. You have to know who you're running after before you start chasing them, or else you're going to spend time and money chasing down irrelevant people who are not related to the success of your business. So that is why step one is we have to define the target market. Now, the possible target market, in my own opinion, from this point on, for the things that I'm going to say, remember that I am a layman, I am a normal person. That's in relative terms when it comes to medicine, medical businesses, things like that. So I'm not versed in medicine. So all the things that I'm going to say here are my best educated guesses. But if Bernadette was a paying client, and of course, since she has a medical background, then we would do this brainstorming together and we'd be able to come up with a much more reliable and actionable list of things that we have to do. So, yeah, so with that caveat out of the way, just know that this is what my best guesses are for how we should go about doing this. So, the target audience, a possible target audience for a medical diagnostics lab, if, like Bernadette, you want to open one of these businesses in your local government, in your city, in your whatever. So, I'm assuming that we'd have to talk to these classes of individuals, people or organizations. So, number one, we'll be looking at certain kinds of individuals. Number two, we'll be looking at hospitals. Number three, we'll be looking at clinics. And then number four, we'll be looking at specialized medical centers. So, these are the people that we're going to be interacting with, or the organizations that we're going to be interacting with. And the whole goal of meeting individuals, hospitals, clinics, and specialized medical centers is we're trying to figure out their need as related to our product or service. So their need when we're talking about medical diagnostic services. So the reason why that's important is because if we know what their needs are and what people find important, then we can design the best processes around them, around their own convenience, and then we can have a much more effective and easily referable business. Because if things work for the customer and are convenient for the customer, then of course they'll want to refer to other people. And you're going to, as we go on with this episode, you're going to see the reason why that's the case. So we have to talk to people to figure out what their needs are so that we can design it around their needs. And then we're also trying to figure out what the decision making process or criteria is of these people or organizations, particularly the organizations. Because if we know what the decision making process is or the criteria is, then when we're ready to sell, we now know who to start talking to and what issues are important to them. So, the first step is this first step that's outlining the people that we're going to talk to. Remember, we're talking to individuals, we're talking to hospitals, we're talking to clinics, and we're talking to specialized medical centers. That is going to be the foundation for all the other ideas that we're going to explore in the podcast episode. Now, remember, this is going to be a multi episode because this is a difficult question. Setting up a diagnostics lab is not the same thing as opening up a bakery or okay, let me look for something even simpler. It's not the same thing as opening up a wedding photography studio or a portrait studio. So I'm going to need several episodes to deal with this topic. And again, I'd like to give a caveat. Remember, I'm a lay person, I'm an ordinary person when it comes to medicine. So these are my best guesses. If you are not a medical professional, do not take what I'm saying as gospel and then open up a medical diagnostics laboratory in your own city using this as advice. But of course, if you're a medical professional, then you will know that when I say some things, you will know what apply and you will know what it is that doesn't apply. Now, the second question that we're going to tackle is this. We now know who it is that we're supposed to start running after. Now, the second question to tackle is this. Should we be doing primary research or should we be doing secondary research with these people or with these organizations? So what is the difference between these methods? Now, primary research is when you get first-hand information. You're the one who is visiting people, phone calling people, going to their offices, issuing questionnaires, sending them email, going to the site visits, doing all kinds of surveys. So for primary research, you are the one who is going to be doing that or doing any other kind of activity like this that helps us to get insights from the people and from the organization. Now, secondary research, on the other hand, is when you're just reading or you're digesting or watching or listening or decoding other kind of data and reports and publications and things like that that has been done by other people, by research firms, by the government, or whether it's industry data. I mean, whatever it is. But bottom line is primary research, you're the one who is doing all the hard work. Secondary research, somebody else has done the hard work. You're just looking at the material that those people coughed up and you're now trying to get the data from it that you can use to start your business. Now, here's a pro tip. If you're looking at secondary resources and you come across, let's say, a government report that is 2,500 pages, that is a lot of pages to read because you're trying to get information on medical diagnostic labs in your country or in your local government or in your county. Now, this is what you can do. You can get a soft copy version of the material so excuse me, and then you can upload that data into ChatGPT, or you can use Google Bard and then ask Google Bard or ChatGPT or whatever AI resource that you are comfortable with, and then ask it to come up with key highlights. Now, when you do that, it's going to give you a sense of which reports you should invest more time in studying or looking in depth at. That's because it's going to throw up what the key highlights are, sorry, excuse me, and then you're going to be able to look at the highlights and say, okay, yeah, there's some data here, but nothing useful, and then you skip. And then for the one that ChatGPT gives you data highlights that you like or you find intriguing, then you now know that you are going to spend the 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 2 days, or whatever that is required to read that report. So let's take advantage of artificial intelligence. You don't have to pay any money for it. ChatGPT is free. There's a paid version. Google Bard is free. Bard is Bard. Google Bard is free. I don't know if there's a paid version, but anyway, these things are easily accessible. You don't even need to download the app. They're available over what's this called? When you open up a web page in a browser. Yes, they are available over in the browser as at the day of recording, and this is December of 2023. So maybe in the future things will change, but for now, readily accessible. Now, I'm going to ignore secondary research methods when answering Bernadette's question. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because I think primary research is superior when you're the one who is doing all the hard work. Although, if you do secondary research first, it's going to give you a good sense of talking points and conversations when you're now interacting with people live. So back to that example of the 2,500 page report issued by the government on medical diagnostics labs in your city or in your local government. If you do the hard work and go through it, you now have a sense of when you're talking to other people who are in the business, you're going to know the kind of questions to ask them to figure out if this is a good business to get involved in. And then also, plus, I'm not a statistician. Sorry, forgive me, tongue twister there. I'm not a statistician or I'm not a data analyst. I'm not a research professional. So I'm not going to be able to teach you guys how to do secondary research because it's not my specialty. My specialty is in having actionable conversations with people so that we can figure out what the next clear steps are for business growth. So let me stick with my own lane of expertise when we're trying to figure out how to advise Bernadette Mutsambiwa on the best way to build, to set up her medical diagnostics laboratory. Now, when we approach individuals in the target market, because remember at the top of the list, we said we're going to be talking to individuals, we are trying to get a sense of whether this is a good business to get into, whether this medical diagnostics laboratory business is a good one to get into. So there's some sorts of things we should be talking about when we start interacting with these individuals, and the talking points that we should be looking for when we're talking to individuals includes what their needs are, what their preferences are, and what their perception of existing lab services are. Now, this doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can use simple conversational techniques. First of all, you want to see if they have a history of using labs, and you ask them, what was the experience like, and then you keep quiet and hear what it is that they have to say. Based on their response, you're going to be able to come up with follow-up questions that will give you more information and things like that. But the point I'm trying to say is that it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma. Thank you very much for giving me 5 minutes of your time. I want to open up a medical lab in XYZ local government. So I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Is that okay? The person will say, oh, yes, my son, my daughter, it's okay. You can go ahead. And then you be respectful and then you ask the questions. So, have you been using lab services so far? So, oh, yes. Okay. With which hospital? I've been using Garki Hospital, blah, blah, blah. What has the experience been like? The experience has been like this, like this, like that. It takes too much time, or it's been like this. It's been very efficient, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a simple conversation. But of course, you have your pen and paper handy so that you're making notes. If you're going to be recording video, audio, things like that, you have to let people know ahead of time. Now, the reason why we should be having these sorts of conversations, keeping it nice and conversational and things like that, is because, like I said, it helps us to inform or design the user experience of the product or the service that we're rolling out. Now, let me give you my own personal experience. In my hospital, where I take my kids to, sorry, not my hospital, I don't own the hospital, but the hospital where I take my kids to, malaria tests for the kids take 2 hours to get the results. Now, most of us parents, because we sit down there in the hall, of course, we want our kids to be well, but we're not happy with the fact that it takes a while to drive to the hospital. Not too long, maybe 10, 20 minutes to drive to the hospital. Then you queue 1 hour to wait to see the doctor. And then the lab results are not going to get ready for another 2 hours. And then when you're done, you get back on the queue to see the doctor again. So for the average parent here in Abuja, you know that if your child is ill, you're going to spend basically 4 hours of the day minimum trying to confirm a malaria diagnosis. And yeah, we want our kids to be happy, but we don't like spending 4 hours of our time. Now, the thing is, I've heard rumors of laboratories that have a 30-minute test to confirm malaria, and that's because my sister-in-law, she doesn't have kids yet. She lives close to one of those labs, and so for her, if she thinks she has malaria, she just walks in there. 30 minutes, she has a confirmed diagnosis. And well, I don't quite agree with self-medicating, but I see the reason why people do the other things that they do. So going to these labs where you have 30-minute tests, or maybe going to a pharmacy and then just buying drugs. In fact, there are most parents, I think, just go ahead and self-medicate their kids, and then if that doesn't work out, then they go back to the hospital, start querying typhoid and blah, blah, blah. So, bottom line is this. If you talk to enough parents about medical diagnostics labs and you find out that maybe the current technology of 2 hours, which is the most popular technology, parents are complaining it takes too long, but then there's this new cutting edge technology that can give you malaria reports in 30 minutes. Perhaps now you know that maybe it's time for you to invest in the cutting edge new stuff that gives results in 30 minutes, because that will make parents keen on coming to your diagnostics clinic, or might make hospitals prefer to send you the samples so that you can test it in your lab and cut down waiting time on clients. So So from talking to people, this is the kind of data that you get and how you can use it to design the user experience. How do people interact with the business? Are they happy or not? Is it a good experience? Is it a bad experience? All those sorts of things. So that's why all these conversations are important. Now, when we're talking to individuals, because we're still on individuals, we haven't moved to hospitals and primary healthcare centers and those sorts of things. Now, while we're still talking to individuals, it would help if we talk to individuals who have chronic health conditions, because people with chronic health conditions, they're the ones that frequently undergo medical testing. So people with diabetes, like I have a relative who, well, for her, she has one of those handy kits. I don't know how it works anyway, but I think you take a sample of your own blood, you plug it into the machine, things like that. But if people can afford those machines, or if they are not that sophisticated or not that brave, because I don't know how, quite frankly, I'm not going to jab myself every day to do the test. I'd rather go into the hospital weekly or monthly or whatever and get the test done instead of stabbing myself every day. So people who have diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular issues, maybe sickle cell people. I don't know if sickle cell sufferers have to undertake tests. But remember, like I said, I'm a layman. I'm an ordinary person when it comes to medicine. So a doctor would know some more. Who are people with chronic health conditions that might need lots of testing. But for me, this is just a guess. So remember, if you want to start a diagnostics lab in your own part of the town, you should be talking to a medical doctor if you do not have experience in these sorts of things. All right, let's see what else. Okay, then another thing, when talking to people, we should only talk to people that we get informed consent from. So we are not going to talk to children, because we have to talk to people who understand the nature of the questions that you're asking and what you intend to use the information for. So don't talk to anybody's kids. Talk to the parents, and make sure that when you talk to the parents know exactly what you need the information for. You're asking these questions, just keep it simple. You don't need a lawyer to draft something for you. You can say, good morning, ma, good afternoon, ma, my name is Kemi, my name is Kevin, my name is whatever. I want to set up a diagnostics lab 2 houses down from here, but before I do that, I just want to know whether it's a good business to get into. Can I ask you a couple of questions? It will help me to design the right kind of experience for my customers. In fact, I'm hoping that you might become one of my customers in the future. Both of you laugh over it, and they see that you're a sharp young man or that you're a bright young woman, and they'll say, "Okay, my son, no problem, sure, ask the question." And yes, so confidentiality is also important. So don't share these conversations with anyone else. You can share the insights or the results that you get from these conversations with your business partners, with your coaches, with your investors, with your consultants. You can share the insights. So you can tell your investors that I spoke to 100 people, and from 100 people, this is the key insight that I got. 50% think this is a problem, 20% think this is a problem, 1% think this, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. But the actual conversation itself has to be kept confidential. So you speak to me, and I tell you that this is the problem that I have. With the 2 hour test, I'd give you all this data. You can share the insights, but you're not allowed to go around and say, I spoke to Tavishima Ayede, and this is what Tavishima Ayede said. So you're not allowed to do that. Now, where do you find the people to talk to? Because when I said individuals, that's rather broad. So you can do that from patient registries, or from databases, from local hospitals, or from clinics or healthcare providers. For instance, in not far from where I live in Abuja in Area 2, there's an immunization center. It's a public center where you get to take your children to get themselves immunized for free. That's for children below the age of 3 or below the age of 2. So the usual stuff, hepatitis, what else? Hepatitis, measles, the usual stuff that we immunize our children against in this part of the world. So people get to take their children there for free. It's also a public healthcare center. It's a public space. So people go there for advice on all things, family planning or HIV prevention, what else? All kinds of things. So there's one of those places in Area 2 in Abuja, and I'm assuming that whether you're based in Lagos or Washington, D.C. or London, you have one of these places that are close to you as well. So Bernadette Mutambiwe, I know that you definitely have one of those places in your country as well. So since it's a public place, approaching people respectfully with permission from the clinic administrator, you want to talk to the head doctor or the head nurse or whoever it is that runs that place, because nowadays everybody's security conscious. So you just see a stranger with a pencil and pad or with a camera talking to people, yeah, it might get some people nervous. So you get there, be respectful, talk to everybody, talk to the Oga, talk to the Madam, talk to the whoever. They headhunt you and make sure you have permissions before you start talking to people. Then, yeah, so that might be an okay idea. But like I said, you have to talk to someone who has medical expertise to figure out what are the ethical ways to approach people when you're doing this kind of research. Because these are ideas I'm just coming up with off the top of my head. But the thing is, a medical doctor might say, okay, yes, this is good. But actually, when it comes to medical ethics and medical practice, we can't approach people this way. We can't approach people this way. We can approach people that way. So, Bernadette, if you don't have medical expertise, you should be talking to someone who is knowledgeable in medicine to figure out the ethical ways to carry out all these ideas that I am laying out over here. So, excuse me, yeah, the cold is still here. The doctor looked at me and my baby, and said that it's a viral thing and it will pass. So, between me and the baby, we're still coughing and sneezing, and yeah, hopefully we'll be well soon. Now, other places to find individuals that we can talk to, there are patient advocacy groups for individuals that have chronic conditions. Like there's a national sickle cell, I'm not sure what it's called, so let me not give you any name. But I know there's a national sickle cell body. That's the Nigerian Sickle Cell Organization. There's also a Lagos-based sickle cell group, and I'm assuming that Mozambique in your own country, there will be some of those bodies as well. Whether it's bodies that are advocating for people with HIV or sickle cell or hepatitis or whatever. So talking to these organizations also has benefits because these organizations have large members. Think about it: Nigeria, close to 200 million population. Well, that's what some people say. Close to 200 million population. So if you're talking to the National Sickle Cell Foundation or whatever, chances are they probably have members on the database on the rosters, maybe tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. So, talking to these organizations give you a large pool of people to talk to. And apart from that, it can also inform your future marketing list because when you're done talking to these sorts of organizations and you roll out your testing facility and you've been able to save 2 hours on testing here or save this on this, or you have the latest ground breaking thing on this and this and that, these are people that you can start marketing to. Like, hey, remember me? I'm the guy, I'm the girl. I was over here 2 months ago, asked these questions. I told you about my plans. I want to start a diagnostic lab, based on this technology, based on that. Well, I've already started. It's open. And my office space is over here, over there, not far from you guys. These are the benefits, this is the pricing, and this is the amount of time we're going to be able to save your members when they come through. In fact, anybody who is coming from the national body of sickle cell, blah, 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 or the national body of hepatitis, blah, 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 when they come in, automatic 25% discount. You can start having those conversations. So, yeah, those are other places where you can find individuals to talk to. You can also find individuals in online communities or forums that are built around medical issues. So don't go to an online community that is built around wedding photography and then start asking people medical questions. That just does not make sense. So online communities that seem relevant to what it is that we're talking about. Then you can also do community outreach, community events. There are local government health fairs in this part of the world. The local government in Nigeria, that's the equivalent of the county, or the in UK, what do you call them? I don't know, county, or is it boroughs or something? Anyway, whatever, you get the whole point. So at the local government, at the grassroots level, there are health fairs that are organized, and then there are also educational workshops. Sorry, not educational. What's the word? Okay, for now, let me just say educational workshops. So the educational workshops that are held by bodies like the Ministry of Health in Abuja, I've noticed that they organize some events at the National Air Force Center. That's one of the event centers in Abuja, really big event center. So Ministry of Health is always doing events there, stuff like that. So at all these community outreach and all these events that are going on, those are where you can also find people to talk to. If you know the organizers and you talk to them ahead of time, you can be a part of the panel. You can have access to some of the attendees, things like that. Then you can also collaborate with healthcare providers, people who have people who are primary healthcare physicians, or maybe even specialist doctors. Then, of course, there's the option of targeted online advertising. So you come up with your what's it called? Is it customer avatar or something? And then you send targeted advertisements to them, and they click on the link, and you get their email address or you get their phone number or whatever. Anyway, you get the whole point. I'm just trying to say that there are options So because I said individuals, and that seems vast, based on what you're comfortable with, or how much money you have, or how much fuel you have a car you can drive around, or availability of public transport, there are ideas when it comes to breaking things down in a much more actionable sense. We can take things, A, B, C, and do things in a very practical sense. So these and many more are the ideas that are possible when it comes to interviewing individuals, so that we can use their insights to shape the user experience of our product or our service. How people are going to interact with the business. So these are the options that are available. Now, remember, you'd have to talk to someone with medical expertise, Bernadette, in case you don't have a medical background. You should be talking to people with medical expertise and someone with knowledge about the business of medicine, so you can see which of these methods are feasible, which methods are ethical, because remember, it's going to be unethical to talk to children. That's the only one I know for sure, but I'm sure there are other ethical issues involved when you're talking to individuals as part of marketing research. So, what is feasible? What's possible? What is ethical? What's unethical? What is legal? What is illegal? What is going to be cost effective? Speaking to someone with medical expertise or the business of medicine, you're going to be able to figure out what's the best way to go about this. So, let me repeat it one more time in case you haven't gotten it so far. The benefit of all this activity is this: you're going to get first hand information about how to staff your lab, about the services you should offer, and about data where you can lean on pricing. Because think about it, with the example that I gave, I'm tired of 2 hour waits. Now, if in your research, you might find that maybe 80% of parents in Abuja are tired of 2 hour waits. And you might find that they don't mind paying double for a 30-minute malaria test instead of waiting 2 hours. So, you see, this kind of intel, this kind of data is really giving you ideas about what do people find valuable, what is the pain point that you can lean on, where might people be able to spend money. So you might find that for HIV test, for instance, that maybe the usual HIV test takes 1 week, but people might be willing to pay triple or quadruple for an HIV test that they can get the result in 2 hours. And then, of course, there are parents like me who, if there was an option to pay so that you get the result in 30 minutes, I would do that as well. So, in validating your business idea, it's not a bad idea to spend weeks, days, okay, maybe a month is too much. So, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to spend weeks or days talking to all these classes of people and stakeholders, because that means also that you're going to have lots of people who are aware of your business plan before you actually begin. Think about it. You've been talking to community organizers, people who work in the healthcare system, talking to individuals. So when you roll out the lab eventually, these are the first people you're going to call. Like I said, hey, Mazi Chukudi, remember, this is me, Kemi, the lady who spoke to you 2 months ago, blah, blah, blah. Remember that conversation? He'll say, oh, yes, my dear, how are you? So, I'm fine, sir. My medical lab is ready. We're rolling it out. My daughter, congratulations. I knew you were going to do well. You're going to do fine. Thank you very much, sir. So, sir, please, next time you're going for the children's this test or that test, please patronize us. We are at so and so. Can I text you the address later on? Let me text you the Instagram handle, blah, blah, blah. The man is going to say, okay, my dear, no problem. Or the woman is going to say, oh, congratulations, my daughter. No problem. Send me the information. Now, these people are your preliminary leads. That is the marketing list that you can use to start tackling customer acquisition. How do you go about getting people to buy from you, buy your product or buy your service? So that's how it works. Now, in the next episode, we're going to see if we can come up with a plan for hospitals, clinics, and specialized medical centers. Remember, this episode has been focused primarily on individuals. So we'll now try and flesh out how these ideas might relate if you're going to go into hospitals, go into clinics, or specialized medical centers. Now, remember, I'm saying this again. I am not a medical doctor. So Mutambiwe, Bernadette, and others who have medical experience are going to have a much better sense of which of these ideas are practical, which ideas are ethical, which ideas are legal, and which ideas are cost effective. If you want to open a wedding photography studio, yeah, you can use these ideas, and that's not a problem. The ethical issues involved are less. But of course, don't interview children. That applies if you're going to interview people to start up a portrait studio or whatever. Now, the whole point of this exercise was not to give exact prescriptions for what to do. The whole point of this exercise was to show you that you can brainstorm ideas about how to validate any kind of business before you start. Any. So, photography, studio, this is the way you can go about it. Film studio, this is the way you can go about it. Diagnostic laboratory, this is the way you can go about it. So that's the point of this exercise. Even if some of the ideas I give here are expensive or impractical, it's just to show you that you can brainstorm and you can validate any single idea before you start a business, even if it's something as technical as a medical diagnostics lab. So that's all for today, folks. Remember to connect with me on WhatsApp or Telegram. The number is 080 64662140. The country code is +234 for those of you who are hitting me up from outside the shores of Nigeria. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. The name is Tavishima Ayede. You can confirm the spelling of my name and email address on the website where you're listening to this episode or the profile of the podcast app where you're currently listening to my voice. I'm also on other socials, but I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn. So thanks for your time and attention. I will catch you guys at the next episode.